The USA is reeling after two separate shootings which left more than 30 people dead in Texas and Ohio. President Donald Trump has condemned the attacks, saying racism, bigotry and white supremacy have no place in America. However, critics have suggested the president's previous language and anti-immigration stance have contributed to the violence. This kind of violence, of course, is not new. 7 years ago this week, Sikhs were murdered at the Oak Creek Gurdwara in Wisconsin. The attacker, Michael Page, was a white supremacist. We can talk now to Kaur from the humanitarian aid charity United Sikhs. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And Sun, you must be feeling a sense of solidarity with the victims this week after what happened 7 years ago.
Morning, Kat. Yes, you're correct there. 7 years on, we as the Sikh community are still healing, I think, from the mass shooting that happened in Wisconsin, Oak Creek. And yes, we do stand in solidarity with the families in Texas and Ohio who lost their family members and friends. It's a time of, I think, it's a time to maybe stand as a community and understand that it's love that glues the world together, and hate has no room in this world.
Well, I mean, it would be nice to think hate had no room in this world, but we seem to hear that there seems to be a lot of it around, and I wonder what you make of. There's been a lot of criticism directed against Donald Trump and suggestions that it's actually the way that he speaks about immigrants, the language that he often chooses, that has in part contributed to the rise of these white supremacist effective terrorists who are going around killing people in mass shootings.
Yeah, and I do agree there, Kat, that President Donald Trump has a part to play in this. His speeches and his famous Twitter feed. There's this fear of stoking language, and I find if a world leader is doing such, then it also allows people to come out of their shadows and shout what they feel. But this can also be very dangerous. If a world leader is demanding, American-born congresswomen of colour to go back to their own country, then what sort of example is he leading to his people of the country?
I mean, obviously he would say, well, I have also said in speeches that I condemn racism, I condemn white supremacy. It has no place in the US. Where do you feel he stands on issues of race?
I always find, Kat, that it's your actions. It's a famous quote of actions speak louder than words, and I think it's important for the president now to look at what actions he's going to take to kind of tackle hate crime and mass shootings across the country for where innocent people are losing their lives. His campaign itself, it was showing a large percentage of people were voting for him not because of the economic anxiety, but it was more driven with racism and resentment. So I do think now is the time that Donald Trump needs to show action and see how we can tackle such incidents and hope that they don't happen again.
And it's been 7 years since the tragedy in Wisconsin, and I can only imagine that when you hear of another mass shooting, you must feel a sense of sort of just a sick feeling inside. But you talked about the community coming together after that event. How do you even begin to repair?
Kat, the Sikh community, we're known to be a resilient community. And we always try and look at the positive side of things. And, although we are hurting, we are healing. I was remembering the two boys who lost their mum 7 years ago. We always try and look at being in an optimistic spirit. And together as a community, what we've begun to do is educate the wider community about the faith. So there's been some outreach. And we've also been looking at mechanisms to prevent further shootings, which is quite sad that you're having to look at these precautions in a faith institution. But I think nowadays we have to upgrade our security and safety of, a congregation in a place of worship.
Sun, thanks ever so much for talking. Sorry, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for talking to me this morning. Okay. That's Sun Kaur from the humanitarian aid charity United Sikhs talking to me. Of course, it's 7 years since the tragedy in Oak Creek, at the Oak Creek Gurdwara in Wisconsin. It's 7:15.